In this lesson, we're going to create a player that can shoot moving targets. I've got a very simple setup here to demonstrate. What I have here are, you can see up here, these are actually the moving targets. This is the player which can move left and right. And I've got some barriers on the left and the right just to limit the player so that it doesn't actually leave the screen. So why don't I just play the game here. I'll hit run and demonstrate this quickly. So we will have basic left and right controls for a shooter, and I've attached it to the left click of the mouse as well as the space bar to be able to shoot bullets. And the idea is to hit one of these moving targets, and if I hit them, they will both disappear and make a sound. Okay, so like that. And that's really all we're going to do here on this exercise. You could take it further and attach score to it and whatnot, but this is the basics on how to create bullets that are actually spawned scenes, and they will interact with the target and will create, again, based on a collision, will eliminate the target and create a sound. Okay, so I'm just going to close this now and go over the file here quickly. I've got a finished file, and then we'll start to build it from scratch. So I've got my main scene right here, and you can see I've got a bullet scene, a head scene, and I've got a couple of assets, my sound and the graphic for the target and the built-in icon. Okay, so in the main scene I've got the shooter, and if I open up the shooter, it's got the typical, the sprite and the collision shape. It does have a script, and we'll come back to that shortly. I've got my two walls here and the two different heads. And I have placed my shooting sound in this top level here in the main movie. And we'll access that from the script inside of the head when it has a collision. But those are the main building blocks, the main nodes. And if I open up the walls, they just have a collision shape. So they're actually invisible on the screen. The head, again, is actually an instance here. And within that instance, I actually attached an animate player, and that's where I'm getting the left and right movements. But the head itself, if I double click it here, it's got a sprite and a collision shape as well. And let's see here. And the bullets, if I just zoom up here, are just a shrunken version of the icon with a collision shape. Okay, so let's go back to the main menu now, or rather the main scene. Okay. So at this point, I think I'm going to close this sample file and we'll start a new one from scratch. So I'm just going to come up to project, quit to project list. And if you're following along, just initiate a new project here, which is what I'm about to do. Create a new game name. I already am in the folder I desire to be in, but make sure you browse and save this in a proper location that you'll know where it is. I'm just going to call this gun lesson. Actually, you know what? I'll go according to my protocol here. Last name, lesson number. So I'm not sure which lesson this is, but I'm going to go underscore. I'll say lesson 10. Whatever the lesson number is, put it in there, please. And then click create. And we start with a blank slate here. I'm just going to resize my window once this launches so that it fits in my capture area. There we go. Okay, so we are working in 2D. And I guess we'll just start with the other node so that we have just a very generic node. And I'm going to click create. And I'm going to rename that right away. I'm just going to call it main. Okay. And inside of there, I guess we can start with our player. Just going to zoom up on this as well. I'm using my scroll wheel and my space bar to move around here. Okay, so I'll introduce, let's see here. I'm going to introduce a character node. So we'll just go character body 2D. Reason for that is I want to leverage the built-in code for moving left and right. It also has a jump feature, but we're going to disengage the jump feature. So in here, typically we need to have a sprite as a child. So I'll call up my sprite node, sprite 2D, and then also a child of the character body So make sure you click back there, and we're going to add a collision shape. Collision shape 2D. All right, so let's just use the little icon that comes with every game, and we'll use that as our player. I'm just going to shrink my scene here and get full view of the scene. There we go. And I'll add that icon as my sprite graphic. So I'm just going to drag icon SVG over to texture here. And you know what? I think the actual size is going to work for me, so I'm just going to leave that. And I'll establish a shape to be similar to that. So we'll go with the rectangle shape 2D, and this is again our collision shape. I'm holding down my Option key. On the Mac, it would be the Alt key on the PC to size that from its center point. Okay, so I'm going to rename that one Shooter. But that's a character body 2D node. Okay, so with that, I think I'm going to attach a script that will give us some pre-built movements. So highlighting that, let me just add a new script. And we'll definitely choose built-in script with the basic movement settings and click create. And there's that beautiful script all done on our behalf. So I do want to move left and right, but I am going to modify this in so much as I don't want any jump features, which is basically this stuff here and this stuff here. Okay, I'm going to take the gravity out as well. So I will just come in and comment some of this stuff out, just in case I wanted to change my mind later. So I'm using my hashtag here. I'm going to get rid of these references to the velocity. And I'll do that up here to this constant. Hashtag where we are. Okay. Now here it's asking for a block, if you will. I'm just going to add a pass in here temporarily. Keep my code kind of alive. And the rest of this we can leave the same, but we should really go to our project settings and establish an input map for that. So I'm going to close this for a second because these are really just meant for testing. Okay. Now again, this is for the spacebar. I'm not going to use it for jumping, but I am going to leverage that for shooting bullets. So I'm actually going to modify it as well and remove this "and is on the floor" feature. I could comment that out as well. Actually, you know what? Maybe I'll do that. I'll put a comment in front of "and." And then I need to put my my full colon at the end of this if statement. Okay, there we go. Proper syntax. And now I don't have anything yet, but I'm ultimately going to put the bullet firing feature in here. Okay. So at this point, let's just replace these UI references with the input map features. So I'm actually going to add a new action here. I'll call this one shoot. And we'll add that. And the actions attributed with that will be, I'm on the listing for input. I'm going to use my spacebar. And I'm going to add another one. Hit the plus sign. I'm going to use my left mouse click. And I'll add yet another one. I'm going to add the W because that's fairly common as well. So I'm just hitting these keys on the keyboard through the listening window. And it does a beautiful job here. So that's my first one. Let me add another one, and I'll just call them left and right. So left, add. And with this, I'll use the left arrow key. Okay. And then I'll also use the A key, which is common as well. So plus, hit the A key, click OK. And that's good for left. Let's add another new action. We'll call this one right. Okay. Add that to the list and then add the particulars to that. So this will be the right arrow and then the D key. So hit the plus sign and add the D key. And I think we're good here on all of our actions. We have something called shoot, which ultimately will fire the instances of the bullets that we have yet to create. And we have something to move left and right. Why don't we test this for now? Let me just do a save here, save scene. And when we test our first scene, it's going to ask us if we want to make this our main scene, and we will say yes, use current scene. So let me just go up to the run button here. Oh, okay. It is working, but I'm just going to move it here, okay? I actually am going to come back to 2D. Now it didn't, I'd mentioned the main scene because I'd actually done that once before. I forgot it's already established. I'm just going to go up here to the move mode. Make sure I have shooter selected and just drag him down to the floor area. Okay. And we'll test that script. Make sure he goes left and right and doesn't jump. So I'm going to use my arrow keys. There we go. And if I hit the space bar, there is no response. So we've got our basic player here with some left and right motion. And we've disengaged the built-in jump feature that comes with that script. So I think the next thing is I'm just going to put some walls in around on the left and the right. Let me just make sure again that I have saved this. There we go. So I'm going to collapse shooter for now, and I'm going to add some walls. So I'm highlighting the main node, the root node, add child. Now these walls should be created with static nodes. So static body 2D nodes. They are the ones that will actually provide built-in resistance like a wall should, or a floor. Okay. But I still have to add, at the very least, a collision shape, and that's all I'm going to do. They're going to be like an invisible wall. So I'm just going to add a child node here, and that will be collision. Collision shape 2D. And we'll just zoom up on that. Actually, oh, I still have to establish the shape of that. Let me undo that one move there. So highlight that, go over to shape in my inspector, and I'll just use a rectangle. There we go. Now I can move this up and just make some vertical walls, if you will. So I'm going to bring them so that there is a little bit of space here. So I will need to grab that shooter. Again, make sure you're on the move tool and not the selection tool. Okay, so there's my static body. I'm going to rename that wall. Okay. Now here I can just duplicate it and then drag the other instance over there. So I'm going to right click on wall, duplicate. It's called wall 2. And I'm just going to drag that. I'm holding my shift key to constrain it here. And that'll leave a bit of space there. Let's save that and give that a quick test. So I'm just going to use my arrows. And you see here, as I go along, it will be limited from leaving the scene on the left and the right. Now a reminder, if you want to alter that speed, it's in the script here. And it's built in as this constant speed. If I want to go a little faster, I could bump that up to 400, let's say. And give that a try. There we go. Okay. I think I'll go down to the happy medium 350. Give that one more quick test to make sure I like it. There we go. Okay, and you can leave it at the 300 if you want. So what we just did there was we took away the jump feature, we took away the gravity feature, and oh, we didn't change these yet. They still work, of course, for testing, but let's actually attribute these button pressed callouts to the built-in inputs that I have here. So this one was called shoot. So I will need to test this again. Now shoot's not going to really do anything yet. I just have a pass going on there, but I'll put it in now. And these ones were shortened to left and right. So I can test that. I'm going to save it on my keyboard and give that a quick test. Make sure they are connecting to those inputs. There we go. Okay. And I know I'm being fussy here, but I'm going to change my speed back to the original 300 and save that. So just a reminder, under our project settings, we went into the input map and created 3 distinct actions. Okay? All right. Now the next thing we need to do is to create the bullet that we'd like to shoot from the top of this player here. So I'm just going to come over here and we're going to add another area node. So I'm selecting my main node here. And area 2D, there we go. And again, I'll add a sprite, child node sprite. and also a collision shape. Okay, so those are the basics that we need here. We do need to establish the sprite. Again, I'm just going to use, I'm going to zoom up here a bit. I'm going to use the icon, but we're going to shrink it really small. So with it selected, I could go to the arrow or to this scale mode. I'm going to go to the scale mode, and you can click anywhere really. And if you wanted to resize, I'm going to undo that for a second. If you wanted to resize proportionally, hold your shift key down. Okay, so I'm going to make it pretty small, right? There's supposed to be bullets there. Now I will zoom up so I can see it, and I'll establish a collision shape now to approximate that shape. So rectangle. I will hold my option key down to recenter, resize from the center. There we go. Okay. And let's see what this has to say. Only to a collision object derived node. Oh, you know what? That was a good thing I saw that. This shouldn't be a child of the sprite. It should be a child of the area 2D. I can just drag that upwards and kind of take it outside of that nesting. And I'm just going to bring it down below now here. That was just a human error on my part, but a very common error. So yeah, these sprite 2D and collision should be siblings, and they should be nested inside of area 2D. I'm just going to save as I go here. And I do want to turn this into its own scene because I want to shoot multiple bullets. So I'm going to right click on area 2D. Actually, you know what? Before I do that, let me name it bullet. Okay. Right click on that, save branch as scene. It'll be called bullet.tscn, and in here is good. There we go. Now this is an instance of that. Oh, let me undo that. I was on my resize. I'm going to go over to my selection tool now. And that's a bullet. Now I actually don't need the bullets ultimately, but I'm going to drag it over here because I want to attach an upward motion to it. So I'm going to have to test it before, I want to set it so that I can spawn. So I want to make sure the motion works. Right now if I hit play, I imagine it'll just be static sitting there, all right? So our next step will be to apply some motion to the bullet. So I'm going to double click my bullet scene down here, and it opens up in a new tab. And not that important, I guess, to see, but there we have it right there. Okay, I will attach a script to the root node, to the area 2D there. Attach script, and yes, okay, create. There we go. It just gives us the basic extent here. And I'm just going to create a speed. So I'm going to create a variable, space, and I'll call it uppercase speed equals, I'll say 600 for now. And that's pixels per second, I believe. And I'm going to establish a direction as a variable as well. So it'll be based on a vector 2. Variable direction. I'll just use all lowercase for that. Equals. Or not equals, sorry. I'm going to make it a type here. So I'm going to use the colon. And the type will be vector 2. Capital V. Vector 2. And then equals. Vector 2. Believe it or not. Dot capital UP for up. It's actually a nice little code, and this means it will just go upwards, believe it or not, once we apply this. Okay, so that's a direction, and basically what that line means is move upwards. And this will be the speed of it moving upwards. Okay. So let's see here. We'll create a function for the process. Function underscore process delta float. I just used my shortcut there, or my hints. And there's a feature called translate. And I guess you're just going to have to kind of go on faith here with me a little bit. Translate. I'm going to double click that because my typing is terrible. And inside of the brackets, we're going to refer to the direction, the speed, and the delta. The delta is the duration of each frame change. So we'll start with direction. And I'm going to use my asterisk. I'll leave a space to make it a little easier to see, but asterisk, which is Shift 8, times speed space shift 8 times, times, I hit the wrong key there, times delta. And again, if I don't type it right, it sure is not going to work. Delta. Okay. I do love the red highlight to tell you that there's something going wrong right away. But this translate should take this information and apply a direction and a speed based on each frame change, which is this reference to the delta. So let me save that. And if it works, we should see that little bullet move up and then disappear. And there it goes. Okay, let me just replay that again. It's fairly fast. I'll slow it down temporarily. Maybe I'll make it 300 here. And we'll test that again. And there goes our bullet. Okay, so now that I know it works, I'm going to just really increase that speed. I'm going to go beyond the 600 and straight to 800. Okay, and save. Okay, so the next step will be to actually generate this scene coming from the player, and it's known as spawning. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my main scene here, my tab here, and I need to access the script for the shooter, so I'm going to click on that. There we are right here. And as I mentioned earlier, this pass was just a placeholder. This is where we're going to put the instructions to generate or spawn a scene when we hit either the spacebar or our left mouse click, which are attributed to this shoot feature. Okay, so I'm going to just keep going past. It's okay to leave the pass there, it's benign. And I'm going to start to put in some code here. We're going to create a constant called bullet. Okay, and that's going to equal something called preload, which is how we access the scene that we wish to instantiate, if you will. So I'm going to say equals, and it's preload. Preload. So in the brackets is where I actually have to drag the scene. So the scene I want to drag is bullet. There we go. Okay, so we're preloading the bullet scene. We're getting it ready to apply. So I'm going to come down here to the next line. And we're going to create a variable called new bullet, new underscore bullet. You can't have spaces in variable names. Equals this constant, which is the actual movie. So we're going to refer to that by its variable name. The variable is like a placeholder. It holds the content of the substance. So bullet, and let's see, dot, here's the magic word, instantiate. And that's where we take something from nothing and make it appear. And here's the shortcut. So it just comes with empty brackets. And that would work, I think. No, not yet. Actually, there's one more instruction. And that's the instruction to actually place it on the stage. So let me just come back down here. And that's called add child. Now I'm going to add it to the root folder so that it's not inside of this scene. So that will keep it basically separate from its parent, if you will. So we have to preface that with something called get tree. Get tree dot root, meaning the top level, which is where the shooter exists, dot root, as well as the targets actually. Dot add child, and that's what puts it on the stage. Add child, and then in the brackets here, I'm going to just double click the code hints. In the brackets will be the name new bullet representing this scene. New bullet. Okay, so that should work. But I'm just going to insert one more line of instructions here. I forgot, it occurred to me I have to tell it where to appear. So I'm basically going to say appear in the same place as its parent, which happens to be the shooter. So again, I'm going to refer to new bullet. dot position equals, and this is going to assume the position of its parent, global underscore position. Okay, so let me just go over these lines. This is establishing what scene we are calling up. This is creating a variable to basically refer to that scene and then effect this command called instantiate. So that brings it into existence. This line here is saying, because it needs to know where it should appear on the stage, it's saying establish the position to be the same position as its parent, and this is this reference to global position. And then finally, we're going to separate it from the parent so that the bullets don't shoot inside the scene. They shoot separately once we launch them, and that's by sending them to the root and then making them appear on the root with this add child command. And the new bullet is actually referencing the bullet scene. Okay, let's test this because we don't know if it works until we test it, but I'm certainly going to save this. Okay, so I'll remind you I've attached these actions to the shoot command, which is in project settings under the input map. Shoot is attached to the spacebar, the left mouse click, as well as the W key on the keyboard. Okay, so any one of those will initiate a shoot. There we go. Now I'm going to remove that test bullet, but there it is. Now I have a small issue. You see how it's sort of coming out of the middle? That's the 0, 0 of that element. I'm just going to change the stacking order so that it comes from behind, and that way it appears to be coming from the top. But other than that, we're good. So let me just go to the 2D scene. I will remove this bullet from the scene because we're going to generate them by clicking and not have one exist when the movie starts, when the game starts. So I'm going to right click this, delete, click OK, and let's just save that. And I did say I was going to change the stacking order, and that is in your inspector. So we've got our shooter, and the higher the number, the higher it is in the stack. I probably should have left the bullet on the scene temporarily, but the bullet, everything defaults to 0, and that's found under canvas items ordering. And you see the Z index? Z index is the stacking order. Okay, they are all defaulted to 0. So as long as I make this higher than 0, it will appear in front of the bullet. So I'm just going to change that to 1. Okay, save that. And now when I shoot the bullets, they should appear to be coming from the head, like that. Okay, so if I'm moving along here, I can shoot these bullets while I'm moving. Okay, so I guess the next item will be to establish some targets. Okay, so for the targets, we're going to need some new scenes. I'm just going to collapse these to simplify it. So I'm going to select the root node again and add another area 2D node. And we'll attach a sprite as well as a collision shape. Again, this time I will select the area 2D before attaching the collision shape. There we go. And for the sprite, I guess I'll go out. I'm going to pick up a sound and a sprite to ultimately apply here. And I do have them in a folder here that I've already gone out and found. So I'm going to take this, pick up coin sound and this little image of my head that I clipped out just for fun. And we're going to drag those into our file system. Okay, so there's my coin sound and there's my graphic. So with the sprite, I'm going to apply the graphic. And I think I'm going to shrink my scene here a bit, because I know I'm going to need to reduce it. So I'll go down with my Option and my Shift key down. And roughly I'll say that's okay right there, give or take. And now I'll establish a collision shape around that, and I think I'll use the circle. And you can just grab that little handle and resize it. There we go. And I'm definitely going to make that its own scene. But before I do that, I'm just going to rename the top node head. And then right click on that node and choose Save Branch as Scene. And it'll be called head.tscn, and we're going to save that, and it should appear down here. So now this is actually an instance. So I'll keep that on stage. I am going to save here as I go. And I will attach some animation. You can see here's the icon telling me that this is an instance. So I'm actually adding a child node to this instance. And it's called Animate Player. Animation Player. All right, so with Animation Player, I do have my animation window open down here. I'm going to actually animate this node right here. To do that, we click on Animation, we say New. You can call it whatever you want. I'll call it, I'll just call it New Animation and click OK. And here you can set the duration. So I'm actually going to say 5 seconds. I'd like this to travel from left to right across the scene over the space of 5 seconds. So I'm going to type that in, and you'll see that it extends this playable area to 5 seconds. The next thing is, what do I want to animate? I want to animate the position, and that's an element that we create as a track. And you can animate so many different things in here, but we're just going to use positioning for today. Add position, it's a property track. Okay, so what you do here is you actually select the thing you wish to apply it to. So it's head, right there. I click OK, and then there's another dialog box asking me to search for the property, and I'm going to say property called position, right there. Now you see this little playhead line here. This is where you can establish keyframes, if you will. They are known as keys. Actually, it's keyframe, but it's just shortened here. Insert key. So the way you do that is you establish where you want it to be on that frame with your playhead there. Right click it down here in the position row. Insert keyframe. Okay, now I'm going to drag the playhead just inside. Don't drag it to the very end. I noticed that it doesn't apply if you go to the very end, but just before the very end. Move your object to its new location. Now I'm just going to grab that and then hold my shift key. I'm going to drag it right off the stage. So it kind of appears and then disappears. And ultimately I'm going to make it sort of bounce back and forth. When I'm happy with that location, I'm going to right click down here where the playhead is and insert keyframe once again. So I can scrub my playhead to make sure it works. And there we go. Okay. Now I have this other option. Do I want it to loop? Or do I want it to animate going back and forth? And I'm going to choose the back and forth one. So let's save that and we'll test that in the preview. Oh, one little thing I forgot. No, it's not working yet, but we're very close. I'm going to click on that animation tab again. This is the autoplay button right here. I neglected to choose that. Let me just save that again. One more time with feeling. There we go. Now that should depart the screen, and then pretty well like it bounces back. And that will go perpetually forever. And the idea here is that I shoot it and it disappears when I hit it. We haven't addressed that yet, but we're getting pretty close to that. Okay. So I'm going to put that code actually inside of the head. It's going to be a detect. We're going to use a signal. So let's just again go over to the head tab here. I will attach a script to the head node. Okay, and yep, create. It's just going to give me the basic extends area 2D. And I'm going to put a function based on a signal. So with the head selected, I'm going to go over to nodes. Select it there again. Area entered. Okay, double click area entered. Send it to the head node. Click connect. And I'm just going to come below here. I'll leave that pass in there. It's benign. So we'll add a thing called cue free, which is how to make it eliminate itself or disappear. So it's QU and QU underscore free. And let's just try that to make sure it's working. So when the bullets come into contact with the head, it should disappear. And if that works, then I'll actually attach a sound to that. And that should kind of conclude the exercise. I'm going to save it first and then do a test. Okay, and let's just see here. There we go. It did work. So let's create a sound, and then we'll attach the sound to these sets of features here under that area entered. So I'm going to go back to main. I am going to create the sound node right here at the top level. So I'm going to click on main, add an audio stream player, and I can apply the pickup coin sound. So I'm going to go over to my inspector and drag the pickup coin sound to the stream. And volume, I'm going to turn that volume down some, maybe to minus 10-ish or so, minus 9 point something. And I'm going to rename it. I'm going to say got shot. Got shot. Okay. Now I will come back to the head script, so I'm going to just click it in here. I'm going to leave a little room here. I want the sound to come before it disappears. So if I grab this node and drag it here, it's going to give me a pathway to that node inside of the code. Oh, you know what? I accidentally replaced that. Let me just do that again. There we go. And all I have to add here is a dot play. And the syntax is right here. I can just double click that. There we go. Let me save that. If I made no mistakes, should be good to go. I should be able to move back and forth and shoot my bullets. And when they hit the moving target, you will hear the sound. In this case, it'll be the little chime. And the head itself will disappear. Okay, there we go. So all I'm going to do now actually is add a second head. And I'm going to change the animation for it. So it will just come up here. And I'll actually drag it in manually from here. And I'll start it on the other side. And here it appears. I am going to add another animate. Let me type it in. Animate player node as a child. And then when I select that, I have my animation window here. I click animation, new. I'll say new animation 2. Click OK. I'm going to extend this one to 10 seconds. So in other words, it's going to move even slower. And I'll add the track for property track. And then I select head 2. Click OK. Then it asks me which property. For head 2, I am going to type in position. Position. OK. Click open. And I can just right click here, insert keyframe, and then drag that playhead to the very end, but not totally to the end, but just before. You see 9.94. I guess I could put 9.99 if I wanted to really exploit that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the scene on the stage, the instance of that scene, holding my shift key down, dragging it off the stage to the far left, and with my playhead there, I'm going to right click, insert keyframe. Save it. Test it. So the top head will be moving faster than the bottom head. Now let me actually complete this thought here. Back and forth. And the thing I forgot the first time was the auto play. Save that again. Play. And there we go. And as you see, this one's moving much slower. I'm using my mouse click now. Okay, and my right and left arrow keys. There we go. So that's how we can create a basic shooter that will shoot bullets. And in this case, we are targeting a moving target. And that is our lesson for today.